This is a story about Jane Mason sitting in her studio on Burdett Road as the famous hearings were about to begin. It is also a story of Watergate as it dominated life in 1973, obscured all other concerns, monopolized all conversations, and became the focus of the White House, the Congress, and the courts until Nixon's resignation in August 1974. On June 17, 1972, a group of 5 men broke into the offices of the Democratic National Committee at the Watergate office building in Washington, D.C. Initially dismissed as a third-rate burglary by the White House, it was basically ignored by the media. However, months of investigation led by Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein of the Washington Post kept it alive with small 4-inch one-column stories buried in the news section. Jane found the articles and pointed them out to the family at dinner. The investigation grew. It became a national preoccupation when serious charges exploded onto the front pages. By February 7th, the Senate voted to establish a select committee to investigate the Watergate affair, to be chaired by Sam Ervin, a Democrat from North Carolina, a Harvard man and veteran legislator with a folksy mannerism which tended to obscure his insightful intelligence and leadership qualities. Revelation followed revelation, and by the time the hearings began on May 17th, the whole country was in a high pitch of excitement. In the words of Nixon himself, "We were wallowing in Watergate." I was certainly wallowing, and Jane was wallowing. She watched the hearings in our daylight basement and became spellbound with the Watergate drama. So she rolled in a sculpture stand, took a spare armature and piled clay on as fast as she could, building up to where she could model it into a face. In a few days, she was so intrigued by what was going on that she rolled in 2 more stands and started working on 3 heads at once. That way, she did not lose time when the TV cameras focused on another person. Soon, she had set up 6 stands with armatures. As the cameras moved to another person, Jane rolled that clay bust in front of the TV set. Choices had to be made because there were only so many rolling stands and armatures. Senator Ervin, Senator Inouye, Majority Counsel Sam Dash, Minority Counsel Fred Thompson were the models on the senator's side. Jane had to work fast as she rolled a clay bust in front of the TV, then rolled a different stand when a new witness came on. I thought Jane's work with them was classic. The best was Mitchell, a great brooding presence. Then there was Hadelman, the public's consensus pick for the great villain, scheming in the Oval Office with a president who had just fired him and left him out to dry. His bust showed the remnants of his fierce pride and the self-important glare of a #1 presidential counselor. John Ehrlichman, less involved and less at fault, actually invoked some sympathy from me with his confused "what am I doing here" look. The process went on for 6 weeks. Toward the latter part of the period, our good friend Betty Martin dropped in for a visit. She knew everybody in the Democratic power structure in Washington. Betty was thunderstruck by what Jane had been doing. She made call after call to newspapers and TV stations, and the next morning, the local NBC TV affiliate sent out a reporter who did a long interview which was aired nationally that night. The local papers followed up with stories and photographs. We got calls, visits, and requests to buy copies of the finished work. It was great fun, and I was so pleased that Jane was getting the recognition she deserved as an artist. The hearing came to a close. Jane put the finishing touches on the clay busts, then prepared to cast them. The bust of Sam Ervin was the most in demand. Most exciting, we made arrangements with his office to ceremoniously present him with his own bust. We went to his office and unveiled the piece before popping flashbulbs. He seemed to like it very much. He knocked it on the dome and said, "Hard-headed, just like me." Senator Inouye and Sam Dash came to our house to sit for Jane to finish their pieces. They were each presented with the final result. John Mitchell wanted to buy his bust. It was a great thrill for Jane. She got a lot of attention. But not much changed in our lives. Even Watergate was transitory and had a life cycle that ended.